Hey guys, how you doing? So today we're going to go a little further into our photosynthesis unit, and we're actually going to start learning about some reactions today, and I think you guys are going to really like this. It goes right off of the information we learned yesterday on chloroplasts. But first, before we really dive in, I want to do just a quick review. By now, we seriously should all know what this is. This, of course, being ATP. Here we have the base. And here we have the phosphate groups. And also where the energy is, right? Remember, the more phosphate groups we have, the more energy that's going to be stored. All right. You guys also have mastered this term autotroph by now. It's something you're never going to forget, right? And these are any organisms that are able to produce their own energy that they convert into food, right? They are able to take in sunlight, convert that to ATP, and then make it into sugar. But again, what they need is sunlight. Think about it. If you ever had a plant out in the sun, it would grow, right? But if you have it in a cupboard where there's no sunlight that's able to penetrate through, is it going to be able to actually grow and survive? It's not. And we're actually going to be doing a lab either later this week or early next week that's going to show you guys this. We also learned about absorption and reflection. And remember that any color that we consider an object to be is actually the light that that object reflects. It's all the other colors in that visible light spectrum that that object actually absorbs. And last but not least, we learned about chlorophyll and the fact that it's chlorophyll that is this, remember, it's a pigment, right? That's able to capture energy from sunlight, and it can transform this energy into ATP and food. Specifically, sugar. So there's our quick recap on everything we pretty much learned. And then last but not least, we just have here is the chloroplast structure. And I want us to remember that going in this direction, we're going from smallest, the little thylakoids, to largest, the plant cell. Right? We have thylakoids here. When you stack them up, they make granum. Granum make up chloroplasts. Chloroplasts make up plant cells. And plant cells, well, they make up plants. And that's what we learned last class. But we're going to take this whole idea of a chloroplast a little bit further today. And we're going to start by doing that with going over the formula for photosynthesis. And so the formula shows that we have carbon dioxide, and this is carbon dioxide, plus water in the presence of sunlight, remember we need sunlight, produces sugar and oxygen. And this is super important because, as you all know, we need oxygen. So what we call, get the right color here, what we call this side of the equation, the carbon dioxide and water side of the equation, okay, these are called inputs. These are materials needed by autotrophs to conduct photosynthesis. If we don't have these inputs, we actually can't have photosynthesis occur. We need these inputs. Now, similarly, over here on the right, the sugar and oxygen that we produce, these are called outputs. And what outputs are is basically what is produced. So the inputs are the materials that are put in and are necessary for photosynthesis. The outputs are the materials that are produced by photosynthesis. So our inputs consist of carbon dioxide, water, and sunlight. Right, there's 3. While our outputs consist of sugar and oxygen. Right, so we have 2 of those. And this is the equation that in any biology course you take, you will always see this. Carbon dioxide plus water equals sugar plus oxygen when in the presence of sunlight. So what you notice here on this diagram, though, is that we have light-dependent reactions on the left, and on the right we have light-independent reactions. So what we're going to do in this class, and what our objective is for today, is to actually be able to differentiate what are the light-dependent reactions of photosynthesis and what are the light-independent reactions of photosynthesis. So we're first going to discuss what the light-dependent reactions are. And I want to make sure you guys fully understand what dependent means. Now, think about if you're dependent on somebody. All right, that means that you need them. Okay, dependent means that you need them. So light-dependent means that light is needed for a reaction to occur. And once again, this is because dependent means whether children are dependent on their parents, whether you are dependent to get money to pay for things, you need these things in order to survive, right? And these plants need light in order for these light-dependent reactions to occur. The light-dependent reactions take place in the thylakoids. And you should all remember these as the green discs filled with chlorophyll that make up the chloroplast, right? If we don't have these thylakoids, we do not have chlorophyll and the plant is not green. So the thylakoids are super duper important, and that's where all these light dependent reactions are taking place. It's all right here inside the thylakoid. Now, for the light dependent reaction, we have 2 inputs. Okay, one of our inputs is water. You can see how we have this water arrow right here, which is going right into the thylakoid. So let's put water right on there. And our other input here, interestingly enough, is light. Right? This is light dependent. So we have our 2 inputs being water and light. Now, our outputs, we have 2 of as well. The first one is oxygen. So oxygen is actually produced by this reaction. We'll put O2 there in parentheses. And then our other output is actually ATP, and this is very, very important, okay? So that in this light-dependent reaction, we're producing oxygen and we're producing ATP. And it's ATP that is actually going to travel to the light independent reactions. All right, so the ATP is actually very, very important, and without it, we actually wouldn't be able to have the light independent reaction, okay? And the oxygen is important because that's what we breathe. So without photosynthesis, we actually wouldn't have enough oxygen to breathe ourselves. So these light dependent reactions are super, super important. And remember, dependent means they need light. If there's no light, these reactions do not occur. This means that no oxygen is produced and that no ATP is produced. Now, light independent reactions, right? If you're independent of your parents, that's you telling your parents, I don't need you. If you're independent, you don't need it, right? So light independent means that light is not needed for reactions to occur. That is, these reactions can occur in the dark, right? At nighttime. Whereas the other reactions can only occur during the day. And what we'll notice here is that these light independent reactions, they actually take place in the stroma. And I want you guys to think of the stroma as the empty inside space of the chloroplast. So we have the light-dependent reactions occurring in the thylakoid, but we have the light-independent reactions just occurring in the empty space of the chloroplast. All right. Now, we also have two inputs for light-dependent reactions. The first one is our ATP that we actually just made from our light-dependent reaction. Okay? So we have that ATP, and we also have carbon dioxide. Our two outputs are ADP. Now you guys should remember that ADP right here, this guy only has two phosphates now. Okay, and you should know that this means low energy, right? Because the energy in that ATP right here, it's actually used to make the sugar, right? And the sugar is going to be our other output. It's what else is made, okay? Sugar. So in the light independent reactions, we don't need light. They can occur during night. And they take the ATP from the dependent reaction. They take carbon dioxide from the outside environment. And together they make sugar and ADP. This ADP is actually going to be recycled. And it's going to go back into the thylakoid where it will become ATP again. It's always going to be recycled, okay? So what I ask is that you guys fill out this vocab, partner up with your partner, do that partner work, and please raise your hand if you have any questions. Thanks so much, guys.